Hey, welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is my amazing co-host, Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. I can't wait for this one.
That concerns me so much. What
Good.
are we talking about today?
Okay, Steve. So we're often talking about these ginormous habits that we need to change. And we need to totally turn our lives around in order to be healthy or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
we all know that it takes X amount of days. They say like 39. I think it's a year and a half, but we won't go there, to make a major habit change.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking of the work I'm doing with the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons to create this coaching program. And then we look at what tiny habit change could you make. So I figure I'm going to bring that conversation to our call so I could say to Steve, ready for this audience?
Yeah.
So, Steve, what is the tiny habit change that you could make in some aspect of your life? Tiny. And the reason I'm saying tiny
Yeah.
is I think we would perceive that a tiny habit change would be easy. And I'm going to go into that after you answer the question.
Well, why do you have to set me up like this?
I love it.
Well, it's interesting because you are right. We often think about the big things, but what are the small things, the tiny things that we can do? And you do enough of those tiny things, they turn out to be big things, right? And so for me, one of the things that I've been legitimately trying to change is um, giving away and this seems like a big one, but it's not. It's really kind of a small one, but it's just automatically giving my power away in a conversation and being sort of jokingly self-effacing. And I've tried to, I need to, and am working on it, but legitimately make that small behavior modification because it is super critical for me to be able to feel like I don't necessarily have to put somebody else at ease by doing that, by trying to be comedic or self-effacing. It is yes, that will impact how people respond and react to me and my presence in a meeting and all that good stuff. But really, for me, the small modification for the change just adds a little bit more confidence into the tank, right? And so, by not automatically doing that and not defaulting to that level of behavior, that one small thing has a true ripple effect to multiple capacities within my life and my professional, appearance.
When we look at something like that, it's a yes and conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tiny habit in how you do it, it's
Yeah.
a giant habit in making it a muscle to do it regularly.
Yep.
So I just wanted to share that because it is almost automatic to many of us to be self-deprecating or to minimize our impact. We do it sometimes as a protective device, sometimes because we don't want to be found to be obnoxious about who we are or bragging,
Yep.
whatever else. And it's really interesting. I was talking to a client very early this morning because my overseas clients, we start early because it's late for them. And we were talking about that in a pitch to minimize what you will do. I can't be this, so I'll be this.
Yeah.
All they hear is like what you can't be.
Yeah.
So, like I just said to her, share what you can do, unique to you, not what you can't. Share
Yeah.
what you will do, not what you hope to do. So you share in a way that brings all of you to the table with no caveats whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that self-deprecating comment would be the caveat before the share. The unintended message is don't expect too much from me because I'm already telling you that I'm this good, not this good.
Sure.
You see where I'm going?
Yep.
So yeah, it is a tiny habit to change the languaging, but it's a giant habit to do it regularly. So it is a new habit.
Well, and it's true. It goes back to like one of our first episodes, tongue fu. How you're the languaging that you're using, the approach that you take, how you show up, the there's all sorts of different aspects to this, but everything that you're doing along the way, all those different aspects have a small minor change that needs to take place. And when you can combine
Yeah.
those and you can see the value and the benefit of what your behavior change is delivering, whether it's more self confidence, better response and reaction, um, just feeling better about the outcome of the conversation or the meetings, it is like, it's like achieving a big goal, right? It's that natural high that you get. You feel a little bit, you're inclined to want to come back and do it again because you feel how great that was to accomplish it. And even it doesn't matter how small the accomplishment is, when we can actually say, yep, I learned from that, I've experienced it, I felt it in my bones, that it was a better outcome than I had previously, then you want to continue to repeat that behavior. It becomes something that's a little bit easier for you to build off of. And it may be, it may seem very inconsequential, and it may not be something you feel, I'm going to go tweet about it and pat myself on the back for doing it. But you know it inside that that's actually a pretty ginormous move for you to make that. And there's all sorts of ways in terms of how you respond to criticism, how you respond to someone's reaction to your idea that maybe they didn't exactly like or buy it, and you automatically go back into that shell and question your self-confidence, or how you show up and exude confidence and authority relative to whatever you might be meeting on, how you respond and react to an argument with your spouse or your kids, or a good friend. All of these things, they you look at them, and through the lens they probably seem like big things, but just these small behavior modifications, these small improvements that you make collectively, that will impact something else, and that will impact something else, and that will impact something else, and before you know it, you are doing something significant. I equated, when you first brought this up before we clicked record, I was thinking about, well, everybody talks about the big thing, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to get stronger at the gym. Well, just improving one little bit, that 1%, can make a huge difference. So you do sit-ups, or you do push-ups or pull-ups, and you just say, yeah, I can do 5, but I'm going to strive for 6. It doesn't seem like that big a deal, and in the grand scheme of things, over the course of 5 days, you maybe did one extra pull-up per day, but that's actually the equivalent of a full week, or a full day of actual activity that you've now done. So it's kind of like you went 5 times, but you actually bonused yourself a sixth, a 6th day, because of your extra effort. And 6 becomes easy to do 7, in 3 weeks, and 8, a month from now. Those little incremental changes and improvements, when you can celebrate them, recognize them for the victories that they are, however big or small they might be, in the moment, they have that cumulative effect and can really make a huge difference, behavior wise, activity wise, in almost every aspect of your life.
So is that a habit, doing that extra pull up, or is that a goal? That's one
It's
of
a
the
good
questions
point.
that comes to my mind. If it's a habit, the habit to me is to not to do the bare minimum, to see if I could go beyond the bare minimum. Because the habit is, what do I have to do to get to this? And I will follow, the process to do that. The habit is following the procedure, the process, and not rocking the boat and pushing yourself to do more. Is the habit to see what my endurance is on a regular basis? So I'm going to push myself to do more, because one day you might only be able to do 5. One day you might be able to do 10, depending on, how intuitive you are with your body.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you the question last week. And if you didn't listen to our podcast last week, I'm going to ask you to go back, because that's how you're going to find out what I'm talking about. Um, we we asked, what are we listening for, right? So when you go into a meeting and you are in some way self-deprecating, what is that person listening for? If that person said, what am I listening for? I'm listening for confidence, person secure in their own skin, that they really believe in the work that they're doing, and that's the kind of person I want to have here. What are they listening for? And if I ask myself that question, rather than what am I listening for, what are they listening for? And I throw these little comments out, I'm not the best there is, but, that kind of language. They're going to be listening for the fact that that person's questioning their own quality of, work, whatever it is. So turn it around and ask yourself, what habit do I have that is no longer serving me? And that is the self-deprecating remark, the having that extra dessert at the end of dinner because we've always done that. That's
Yeah.
the habit. We've always done it. I've always done it. And I'm gaining weight. So is that serving me?
Right.
Excuse the pun. So, if we look at habits, what are habits that help us? What are habits that don't help us? That if we made a tiny habit change, would have that overall impact.
Well, I think that's a great thing for our audience to actually look at. I mean, it's a perfect journaling exercise to look at what habits am I doing that help me and what habits are that I'm doing are hurting me, and then see on balance. Okay, so if I can see the things that are helping me, what additional increase can I do to add even more power to that, right, to make that habit even more profitable in terms of the outcome. And the ones that aren't serving me, what do I need to adjust or change there? And those are the ones that take a little bit of mental effort for you to go in and look at that, and look at it from all sides. How is that affecting my your own approach of your perception of yourself, and how others are perceiving you, how how or where it's giving or taking away the power and maybe giving it to somebody else. And looking at just that habit in general. Like, if you start looking at those things, like part of the reason that I knew the self-effacing thing was such a huge thing for me was I actually had somebody who first got, into speaking professionally that said, you always start with a self-deprecating point or joke because it makes you human. And I do think that there's some semblance of that. However, um, also an authentic, committed, confident person also makes you human because you're setting the stage for what you're going to present and the ideas that you're going to give. And I feel like, I fell in that habit because it became easy, and it became something that made it sort of a way that I felt like I was sort of being accommodating to the audience or to another individual, but not realizing at the same time how it could be skewing the judgment. Maybe they know me to be, kind of a comedic individual, and they think, oh, that's just Steve being Steve. But if they don't know me, they don't know Steve as being Steve. They don't really know who this person is. And you could be clouding their perception of you, and it could forever be clouded, right? It takes 3 seconds for someone to recognize whether they like you, in 30 seconds whether they're going to commit enough to trust you, right? So there's a lot of important value there, but not looking at those things as an individual, then you're probably, yeah, you're probably not addressing something that really does need to be addressed. And that could be a variety of behaviors. We just happen to pick that one, right? Because that's something that I honestly deal with.
Yeah, I always say to people who are preparing to do a speaking gig that the first thing that you say that comes out of your mouth, everything else is going to be filtered through. So if you say something, for example, self-deprecating, they're going to try to find
Yeah,
every instance in your talk why you don't measure up. That's not going to serve you because you're called to speak because you're doing something that is incredible that they want you to disseminate. So they
yeah,
don't want you to minimize it, they want you to maximize it so people really learn from you. Number one.
yeah, yeah,
Number two, the second part of that is if you're going to say something that is scary, is minimizing, go big. So if you want to go in and say, do you know that 80% of practicing coaches worldwide aren't making a living? You don't say, I struggle to make a living. Oh, no, that's not what you're being called in to
uh-uh.
speak to fellow coaches. It's saying, do you know that 80% of practicing coaches worldwide are not making a living? They think they can hang a shingle, be the most amazing coach, which they can be, but don't have to have a business model that supports it. Did you know? And then there'd be two other did you knows that are shocking them into awareness. They're going like, holy cow. Like, no, I didn't know. Okay, I'm going to give you a blueprint to get you beyond that. And you have them because
Yeah,
you're
it's a great
confident,
point.
you've figured it out, and you're saying, I know the statistics and I'm not one of them.
Yep,
There you
yep,
go. And you're not going to share every story in the book how you struggled and failed, which a lot of internet, training course gurus tell you to say, this was my story. I was maxing out on my credit cards and I did this and I did that. And now I'm making $15 million a week.
yep.
How many people are going to relate to that and actually think it's possible for them? And if they do, and then they fail, they go, I was just duped by that person on the
Yeah,
online
that quick reach.
training,
Yeah, yeah,
as opposed to, this is the truth. This is the statistics. You could find them out on the internet, wherever you search. And I'm going to give you a blueprint to at least address them. How far you go is your choice, obviously, right?
yeah, yeah,
So it's walking in with confidence. It's sharing what you can do for you or don't do well.
yep, yep. So yeah, it's so important. Yeah, I mean, I love that perspective, and you're right. I mean, this has such implications in every aspect of our lives, right? We just kind of picked a handful of things, but I would encourage our audience to really look at what are those things that are holding you back right now that that those habits that are not serving you, getting those on a list, shining a light on them and saying, okay, what can I do differently? What small thing can I adjust? And you may not, it may not be like, the angels sing and the beautiful light comes down and says, oh, look, you've discovered it. Here's
Yeah,
the treasure trove of solving it, right? It may take, continual reinforcement and effort, and but it's so critical and it's so important. It's part of the reason why Donna and I love what we do, because coaches have that ability to sort of alter that perspective for you, at least get you thinking about things from a different perspective. They don't have the answers, right? They're not going to give you the answers to the test, but they're going to have you look at some of these situations that are self-limiting and help you navigate the waters necessary to make those small little habit changes. And the beautiful thing about it is once you've done it once on something, right, it becomes easier to do it again on something else. And we're all a work in progress. We're not perfect beings. We're not in, constant states of success. Donna and I both go through our own trials and tribulations. Obviously, I shared one of mine, right? But, at the end of the day, as individuals, we're all dealing with something, right? And sometimes it's a
yeah,
lot of something. But when we can check one of those off the box and check that box and get that off the list, and we can actually come back and say, okay, great, I did that. Okay, what am I ready to attack next? Before you know it, you actually have really felt like you've accomplished something significant. So, just encourage our listeners and our audience to maybe think, a little bit more specifically about those habits that
yeah,
aren't serving you, and see what modifications that you might be able to make to make that adjustment, and to make some positive inroads.
for sure. For sure. I think this is an important conversation to have with ourselves.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Donna, so we're always curious, because we're getting some great feedback from folks that are saying, "Hey, I am really geeking out on your podcast. I love hearing that. I heard that word just 2 days ago. Heard another one yesterday from someone that Donna and I had an opportunity to have a conversation with, that says that she enjoys our podcast over a glass of wine."
Yeah.
And so that was big props. That had me buoyed all day. I love that. But we'd love to hear what you're taking from these episodes, and what comments, feedback, input you might want to give to us, any topics that you think might be useful or beneficial. And of course, we want to encourage you to take these topics and carry them back to your boardrooms, carry them back to your family dinner tables, have these conversations with your friend groups, and see what it stimulates in terms of response and reaction. Because this is just sort of the tip of the iceberg. I think when you carry it out into your real world and you experience how other people are facing these topics and having these responses and reactions to these topics, I think you'll be amazed at what kind of great conversations it will lead to. So, Donna, how can they
Definitely.
how can they get involved and share feedback, or let us know what they're struggling with?
Join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper, or post on our YouTube page. Either way, you have an ability to join the conversation. That is critical. You could get us from our websites. Ripplecentral.com is where Steve's living right now. And I'm at donnacarlin.com, Carlin with a K. Just reach out because we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
We want to know if what we're saying is helping you in some way, giving you some revelations. It would be very cool to hear from you so that you help us continue the conversations.
Absolutely. Well, Donna, I enjoy this like I enjoy all of them. I'm gonna really look at my list and see what else I can can continue to focus on and tackle. And I suspect you'll do the same. And I'll be back, and we'll be back for another episode of Inquiring Minds very soon. But until then, Donna, have a phenomenal rest of your day.
You as well.
All right, take care.